Alright, so I've wanted one of these rotators for a long time, but I couldn't justify spending $1,500 to $2,000 on one. So I made this one here, and it took me about 16 hours. You know, didn't do it all at once, just over, you know, a month or so. And it cost about $400. So I'm going to show you how I made this one.
Really? You gotta come in if I can get in the... Go lay down.
So I want to build a welding rotator, and I've got some leftover parts from a couple of different jobs that I do, and I've been thinking about this. I got a way to create something different. So I want the welding rotator for a different job. So it's kind of a shitty weekend, so I think I'm just gonna see if I can knock it out this weekend. So this heavy ass thing here is actually out of a pallet mill. There's a grain elevator down the road, and this is what they use for making like dog food and stuff like that. They get worn out, and so they bring them down here, and I rebuild them for them. And these shells get thrown away. And every year I scrap probably, you know, half a dozen of these for those guys. And what I thought about doing is cleaning up the outside edge of this, welding a couple of plates on it, using the bearings and stuff, which will get junked, making a spindle, and then putting a 3-door chuck from a lathe on it, a couple of gears or sprockets and some chain and a gear motor. Making a stand for it. Bingo presto, we've got a welding rotator. So that's what we're going to do. Man, worse than baby diapers. Nah, not worse than baby diapers. Alright, so these have two 3.5-inch bearings that are opposed to each other, which work real good. So I'm going to make a trip to town and see if I can find me some 3-inch black pipe, and that's what I'm going to use for the spindle. So this is 3-inch black pipe, and I just put it in the lathe and just hit it with a file for a few seconds. It's actually surprisingly close. It was about 1/1000th or 1/1000th and a half off, so it was fine. So I wasn't going to try and turn it. And you know, I got the nice easy sliding fit that I was shooting for. So there's going to be a spindle. Alright, so this is the piece that originally goes in these rollers for the pellet mill. And these ones are worn out, they're shot, so they're no good for what they're intended for, but they'll be absolutely perfect for making this welding rotator. So all I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to bore this thread out of this and then weld it onto that on one end. And then I'm going to have to thread the other end so that we can tighten it up and pull the tension against the two bearings. The way this is machining, I think it's 12L14, so this idea might just bit me in the ass. So when I was machining this, you saw how it was just exploding when the boring bar was hitting it. And it kind of tells me that this is probably 12L14, which is leaded, which means you can't weld it. I'd be very surprised if they were actually making this out of 12L14, but I don't know. I'll find out here in a second. I'll try and weld it and see what it does, and if you can't weld it, I'll have to start another idea. Not sounding promising. It's 12L14. As you can see, it just pulls it right away. So the only way to weld 12L14 is friction welding. Why they'd make these out of 12L, I don't know. This is actually a wear part, and that's probably why they wear out. So, yeah, back to square one. This roll is hardened, so we're going to bring in the big guns. We're going to go to CBN. Alright, so I smoked one insert, one half of an insert. Once I got through the interrupted cutfish, got my green. So this is what CBN looks like. It's really hard to see. I don't know if you can focus on that, but there's a little wee, like a diamond insert on that, and I think that little bass is like 86 bucks. Okay, so I'm back on my welding rotator here, and on the weekend I started screwing with one of these. Found out these are actually 12L14, so you can't weld them. So I'm going to use this one as the lock on the back and to hold the sprocket. There's my spindle, there's the body. And UPS brought me the chuck that I got off of eBay for this, so I'm going to use this chuck on it. So I'm going to make the adapter now out of this. I went to a place in town, and this is actually just a drop they have. They burn plates up, and every once in a while they get these nice big like 8 or 9 inch circles out of like 1.5 inch plate. And so what we'll do is we'll make essentially the bearing spacer and cap and all that, and the mount for that in one piece. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Alright, so that should be my 6.33. Close enough. I'm not going to argue over thousandths of an inch. Alright, so that's about an hour and a half, I guess, from start to finish. There's a backing plate for that, and then that'll go in there. Bearings will run on that. Sweet.
perfect.
Alright, so last night my battery died, so I didn't get to finish this. So I went ahead and welded that on there and just put a few spot tacks in here with the TIG just so I can line it all up. I don't want to weld that because that's actually where the bearing's going to go, and there's one there I might actually have to clean up because it looks like it might be enough to catch the bearing. So I'm going to throw this in the mill now and put the thread on here for the back. I'm going to run a metric thread on it. All of my lathes are actually turret lathes, so they don't have a thread counter, so I have to do any threading like that. I do it in the CNC mill. So I'm going to run the thread down to about here, and then I'm going to rethread this with the same thread. The piece that these originally ran on had a smaller diameter, so that would take away, would leave the pipe way too thin. So we'll rethread both pieces and then we'll start assembling this. I was wondering if this is going to actually vibrate, but it sounds like it's going to be fairly solid, so I don't think I have to clamp it through the top. I think we're alright. Alright, let's see if this rings like a bell. So I had this 84 tooth sprocket from I think it was off my kid's go-kart, but it was just way too big. I was going to run a 11 tooth to get the ratio down, and so I just went down and got a 45 tooth. So to get the ratio right, I'm going to have to make a 5 tooth sprocket. Okay, so I put the thread on the inside of the sprockets and then the slots for the bolts. The idea is this sort of thread on the back of there behind the other piece that keeps the tension on the bearings, and then pull that up against that. I'll degrease and repack all these bearings before I'm done, so they won't look as crappy as they are. Okay, so there's the general idea. There's the chuck, and then the body, that's the old pellet roller. And then, you know, the new spindle and the gear. And then I got this off of eBay. And it's just a little 12-volt DC motor with a gear drive in it. And it's not real big, but it's about 9 pounds of torque, which is going to be God's plenty to roll this thing around. Alright, so I thought it was going to be 5 tooth. It's actually 6 tooth I got to make. I drew it out on the computer, and it turned out 5 teeth was too small. It wouldn't clear the arbor of it here. So that's going to be the combination sprocket arbor all in one. I made the sprocket. It is a 6 tooth and it's for a 40 pitch chain. And I honestly don't think you could probably get down to a 5. I mean, that's as small as I think it's going to be, physically possible to do, because you couldn't mount it anything smaller than that. If you go down to a 5, you couldn't even mount it on a 1/4 inch shaft. So I just did a weld test on one of the other ones over here, because I'm getting ready to make the mount for it. And if it was 1045, it was going to mean I had to mount it one way, because you can't weld 1045 worth damn. And if it was chromoly, I could make just a simple mounting plate. And I would have assumed that these were going to be 1045 just for an economic reason, because you can get a nice hardening on 1045 just as good. So I did a weld test over there on another one of these, and I'll be damned, they're actually 4340 chromoly. So yeah, they're not wasting any money when they make these rollers. And we need one of those.
Put your pin through there and make sure they're lined up.
I'm just getting one at a time because it was too much of a pain in the ass trying to line them all up. So I'll just tack this one and then flip it over and then do it. Alright, so this is the top half welded up. Now I gotta make the base, and I'm waiting on casters, so this is going on the back burner for a few days. I screwed up and didn't make video of this, but this is the motor mount for it. So put it all together, and this little motor was supposed to be 35 RPMs, and it turns out it's 42. So I'm running just a hair faster than what I was expecting it to run. But, it's variable speed. So I don't have the electronics to slow it down just yet. It'll be here sometime during the week. And I've got to come back in here and just make the slot just a little bit longer. It's just got the chain just a hair too tight if I tighten it all the way down. But runs great. This yellow stuff is safety handrail left over from a job I did. I got probably a couple 100 feet of this still laying around, so Comes in handy for stuff like this. Alright, so I just cut these braces on the bandsaw, and I'll clean the paint off of them and then I'll tack them on. She's definitely going to be a heavy one. So. Alright, starting to look like a machine. Now I was just kind of guessing on when I was putting this together, but by God, it's surprisingly well balanced. You know, for a heavy, this head's probably 100 to 120 pounds. And it's not difficult to move it. These are just cheap casters from Harbor Freight. They're supposed to be 330 pounds a piece, but that's fucking bullshit. If it's Harbor Freight, take the number and half it. So, for it, I'm probably good for 600 pounds, which is fine because this thing only weighs maybe 150, so. Does look like Ned Kelly's helmet. I'm guessing this thing took about 16 hours all up. I mean, I worked on it, you know, a little bit here and there, so this is over like a month-long period. But all I gotta do now is paint it and put the electronics in it. Okay, so the tape was a little on the old side, so that took a lot longer than it should have, but a lot quicker than driving to town, get more tape. Alright, so I'm probably going to make a change to this. I'm not real thrilled with the way it came out. It probably needs more of a T-shape. This will have its use for coming along the edge of something. So I think I'll make another you know, armrest here. It's more of a T shape. I think that's the freaking bomb right there. That's beautiful.